Today we will talk about retirement. Oof, a topic that no one really wants to spend time thinking about. Usually the thought of retirement fills us with anxiety and dread. We want to live in the now. Why do we want to stress about the future? Well, if you want to have a comfortable life when you retire, not having to rely on other people like your children or other members of family to support you, then you might want to consider doing the responsible thing by providing for the future. And the truth is that most people don't think deeply about retirement because it is usually such a far off event that gets pushed to the side, put on the back burner and locked up in the basement. From my own experience, once you receive that first sweet paycheck, the thought of putting aside some of it for the future is not a great feeling. Deferring spending to the future sucks, but it is worthwhile unless you want to live off your family and children in the future and become that person that is scorned for living a wasteful financial life. Setting aside money for the future can be daunting, as it involves making calculations about uncertain future events. Not everyone has a good handle on what they would need one day to retire comfortably, as it is difficult to predict what the future would look like. A useful option is to consider approaching a financial advisor to assist you with your financial planning. But all too often, we look at the fees that financial advisors charge with scorn. We say that we can do it ourselves, and ironically, this mindset often results in an individual making dubious financial decisions or asking advice from friends and family that may not be experts in the field of financial planning. Having said that, this video is not financial advice and is aimed to help people to reflect about their own financial situation. This material is purely educational in nature and is offered as some food for thought. I'm an advocate of using financial advisors as they would be able to assess your financial situation, just as a doctor is able to assess your health and prescribe the right kind of remedy to address your physical ailments. Alright, so with that out of the way, let's look at some of the retirement rule of thumbs that have been doing the rounds. The rule of thumb that I would like to talk about is the 10 times annual salary rule of thumb. And essentially, this rule of thumb states that your net assets should be roughly 10 times your gross salary by the time that you retire. Net assets mean that you deduct all of your outstanding debt from your cumulative assets. You also need to exclude your primary residence from your net assets so as to paint a clear picture of the money that you have available to meet your monthly expenses. I've created some spreadsheet magic and I've included some other items that you want to consider when estimating your 10x amount that you need by the time that you turn 65. One of the biggest factors that is overlooked is the impact of inflation and what that has on your buying power. We know the prices of goods and services tend to rise over time, and hence you need to adjust your annual salary for inflation in order to accurately apply the 10 times rule of thumb. If you're on the cusp of retirement, the 10x rule will be less complicated as your annual salary will be correct starting point for the 10x calculation. However, if you are 30 or 50, there's a bit of time that will pass before you retire, which will affect your inflation adjusted salary and hence your 10x amounts that you need by the time that you turn 65. There are, however, certain goals that will help you assess whether you're on track to reach your 10x by the time that you turn 65. And these are: you need 1 times your gross salary by the time that you turn 30. You need 3 times your gross salary by the time that you turn 40. You need 6 times your gross salary by the time that you turn 60. And you need 8 times your salary by the time that you turn 60. So now with that said, let's dive into some of the numbers and make this a practical example. Suppose you're 30 and you earn a gross salary of $500,000 per year. Using the 10x goals, you should have at least $500,000 saved by the age that you're 30. Assuming that you're subject to no inflation, which is unrealistic obviously, you will need to have saved up $1.5 million by the age of 40, $3 million by the age of 50, and $4 million by the age of 60. When you reach the age of 65, you will need 5 million rand. Simple, right? However, inflation makes it less simple. Assume that inflation will be 6% per year until you retire. In this case, you need 0.6 million by the age of 40, 9.6 million by the age of 50, 22.9 million by the age of 60, and 38.4 million by the time that you retire at 65. Therefore, assuming inflation of 6% turns the 10x calculation into 38x, assuming that you still have 35 years left to retirement. That's where the 10x rule of thumb goals come in handy, as it gives you an idea of the net assets that you need to have saved up at a specific point in time. The 10x rule of thumb targets are a great way for you to track your savings relative to what you require for retirement, and you can start from an early age to apply the targets. Assess your own financial situation, set up a savings plan, and try and reach the targets to provide you with peace of mind. It is also good to have a clear view of the significant amount of savings that you need to accumulate over your working career, and this may deter you from spending money that would be crucial for your financial freedom at retirement. For the next part of the video, I will take the 10x rule to the next level and include some additional factors that could play out over your lifetime. These factors include an increase in your salary over and above inflation. When you grow in your career and climb the ladder, you may receive increases in your salary that's over and above inflation. The question then becomes, how much do I need to save over my lifetime, assuming that you receive above inflation increases in your salary? And this is something that we can easily calculate using our spreadsheet. In the next example, I've assumed that a person earning $500,000 at the age of 30 will receive an annual salary increase of 8%, which is 2% above inflation. If you compare the inflation-adjusted salary under a scenario where a person receives only inflationary increases over his or her lifetime, you will notice that the difference in salary increases quite substantially, assuming the additional 2% growth. For example, the $500,000 salary grows to an amount of $3.8 million by the age of 65, assuming inflation of 6%, compared to an annual salary of $7.4 million, assuming annual growth of 8%. Applying the same 10x rule of thumb targets, you will need the following net assets for each milestone under the new scenario. You will need $3.2 million by the age of 40, $13.9 million by the age of 50, $40.2 million by the age of 60, and $73.9 million by the age of 65. That's quite a lot of money and requires financial discipline and a clear savings plan that will assist you in reaching your future goals. For the last section of this video, I created various scenarios based on different salaries at the age of 30, which may help you get an idea of the amount of savings that you will need to accumulate over your lifetime. Feel free to pause the video and write down the various milestones that apply to your case. Thank you for watching this video on the 10x rule of thumb. I hope that this provides you with some insight about how to plan for your future retirement.